Welcome to Mindfully Integrative Podcast with your host, Dr. Damaris G. Mindfully Integrative is a podcast discussing ways toward mindfully incorporating integrative health into our lives. This podcast will have informative resources, fun topics, interviews, and discussions relatable for today with a true mindful perspective in a mind-body holistic life approach.
So let's talk about the GLP-1s and the science of it. So how does it kind of actually work? We went over just a general overview, but how is it working in the body? And so I had stated that a glucagon-like peptide, a GLP-1, it's a hormone in the gut. It plays a crucial role in regulating the appetite, the metabolism, and it is part of the incretin hormone family, meaning that it is insulin releasing from eating, endocrine, meaning the body is excreting, and scientists have discovered that this GLP-1 level either is done naturally through the body or has now produced medications for better blood sugar control, weight loss, and improving metabolic health in many areas, and many other areas that it has shown that has had improvement. As I talk and we'll discuss further, increased hyperinsulinemia causes many chronic illnesses. In this situation, we're trying to talk about why it's important to have proper balance of GLP-1, whether it is through medication or naturally, how to get to there. And it's an amazing thing what the body can do. It's about how it's functioning. What's the link? When you think about a GLP-1, it's secreted actually through the intestines. It's by the L cells. And in that response, it helps regulate our metabolism and it helps stimulate pancreatic beta cells to release insulin when glucose levels are high. So yes, this was initially given for diabetic patients so that it can prevent blood sugar spikes and to prevent and help move glucose within the bloodstream into the cells for energy. The main issue is when we have excess and too much. This is so important, obviously, for type 1 diabetes individuals that have an insulin secretion or excess. So they call it insulin resistance, but really it's maybe an excess amount of insulin within the bloodstream, not able to get out, or there's an impairment. In type 1 diabetes, there's an actual impairment in the beta cells in producing the insulin. So it's a little bit different. One can be managed. The other one actually is a genetic component that needs the insulin to but in turn, you still can benefit in a GLP-1 component that if you can get rid of the excess of insulin that is not needed, that will be helpful for both patients for weight loss and metabolic health. So when you boost it, you will help your insulin function, your metabolic health, your overall metabolic and weight. Now, things that it does do initially, not just by insulin secretion, it slows gastric emptying. So you're going to see and hear big conversation, constipation, nausea. Why does it do that? It does that because it makes food and digestion a little slower. One, making you feel full, so you're not eating and eating. Two, it regulates the leptin where your food intake. So there's hormones called leptin and ghrelin. Ghrelin is for when you're hungry. Leptin is that food, that fullness. And the GLP-1 will slow that feeling of fullness, satiety. And it keeps the blood sugar level stable. It reduces your post-meal energy crashing and prolongs feelings of fullness, which is why you are able to sustain this medications. What does it matter? The slower, it reduces the hunger. Now, I will say a caveat to that is that if you drink more water, kind of help with the digestion, you won't get as much of the constipation that may come with a GLP-1. The benefits of slowing your digestion is eating less. But if you're not having high quality, nutrient dense foods, then that is a problem. Having 0 calories a bunch of French fries and then saying and then I had a protein shake, I'm good. That's not going to cut it. If you're still not eating and taking like medications, if you're taking GLP medications and you're not using this as a tool and you're still not nutriently giving yourself the right amount of foods for the body, then there is problems. Yes, it reduces your appetite and your satiety, like I had been initially saying. This is because the GLP-1 acts on the hypothalamus, which is the brain's hunger center. So it signals and says, hey, I'm full. So that leptin number, if it was really high, usually the GLP-1 would signal it and say, hey, it'll start lowering it. So in saying you're full, you're good, don't overeat now, you're okay. And that's helpful because what it is it's wanting you not to just overeat, and you should be eating for fuel, not eating just to be eating and eating and eating. And it helps naturally decrease the body's need for food intake. It's more of, okay, we need this, not I have to have. Now, granted, there's enjoyments, but when you have those enjoyments, you know, that food intake and your metabolic health will change and your metabolism will change. And you may not be able to get back to where you used to. But the reason it's so effective is it does help with the weight loss. Now, if, you know, you still eat your way through these medications and you're not able to get through the behavior changes, the science of it may not work. Now it lowers the glucagon secretion. Glucagon is a hormone that increases the blood sugar, breaking down stored glycogen in the liver. GLP-1 reduces the glucagon levels and preventing unnecessary glucose release. So there's a lot of studies that have shown that GLP-1 use will help with fatty liver, will help long-term because the liver metabolizes and has many functions. And in turn, because it will break down the glycogen, it can also break down many other parts like metabolizing cholesterol and will help prevent more issues or break down the liver byproducts, which I will get into in a further lecture. But why does it matter? When you lower that glucagon level, you then can contribute to better blood glucose balance and reducing your diabetes risk or management. So it's not that you're necessarily stopping yourself from diabetes. You're managing it if you have it, or you may be pre-diabetic and trying to reduce that risk of it progressing in your body, the liver or the pancreas from getting, or the insulin from becoming insulin resistant. So it's super important, and it can be, if it's used in the right manner, this is an excellent way of change. Now, GLP-1 and how is it effective with the weight loss? So we talked about the diabetes part and the sugar. Why is it affecting weight loss? So initially, I stated that it has to do with, you'll see the medications that are out. Big ones are semaglutide, tirzepatide, which are Wegovy and Mounjaro, or the other one is called Zepbound, which is tirzepatide. These are appetite suppression medications. They reduce the hunger within your body because it signals and says, hey, I don't need that much food. This in turn is a good and bad thing. That doesn't mean you don't need anything because your body does need nutrients to live. So you still need a good amount of protein, carbs, and fats to sustain a good quality body. And I think what happens is people get that triggered off and then they stop eating. And then they wonder why they're nutrient deficient and they're having hair problems and side effects. You need to eat, but you need to choose the right foods, the highest amount of protein and quality carbs and nutrition with hydration. It delays digestion, which you have talked about, to make you a little bit more fuller. It discusses in the sense of when you're trying to fat burn, you're trying to build up your metabolism, and insulin sensitivity. Insulin sensitivity so that your body can use that fat for energy rather than just storing it and not getting rid of that insulin within the bloodstream. It lowers the blood sugar and it helps with less fat storage. So kind of gets rid of it. And when you stabilize that, you'll notice you'll see more weight loss. Now, the clinical evidence on here, I'll show you and leave some research articles available. But basically, the main thing is you can reach anywhere between 15 to 24% of body fat weight loss with these medications. In addition to obviously behavior management, dietary, and long-term goals, you can do very well and maintain. Trust me, I have been on these medications and I maintain for the past year and a half at my goal weight and have microdosed these medications 4 to 6 weeks within as needed for weight and inflammatory reasons. So yes, these medications do work and are very effective if done and used properly. Other research has shown higher amounts of GLP-1 tends to have that person eat less, and they also have a lot less of that body fat percentage, especially if you know how to maintain the amount of protein in your body. And I talk about this in other lectures and online about what's the right amount of protein for you. So key takeaways for you is GLP-1s can be in the body naturally throughout the intestines, and it can also be used with this medication to enhance weight loss, but as in turn help with many other metabolic issues within the body. So it is a very effective anti-inflammatory metabolic health and for weight loss. So it can be used very well. So let's talk about how it affects the gut and brain. Now, I discuss the gut and brain connection quite often and how the microbiome influences it. I think the microbiome influences almost everything in some manner, being that the gut is a second immune system. So because of that, you can imagine the importance of the bacteria within your entire GI system and how it's a role. It aids in your hunger regulation and how much GLP-1 secretion is actually happening. So if you have poor gut health, meaning there's an irregularity of the right good bacteria within it, you actually will decrease your amount of GLP-1 use within your body, which then is why you need medication. And you'll know this when you start to see visceral fat, meaning that donut surrounding your waistline. When you see the waistline and you get that belly, anything from small belly to big belly, and your hip to waist ratio is greater than 1, you'll know this is a very big sign of what the gut is telling you. Yes, there's a fat issue, there's an inflammatory issue, and something is not right. So things that stimulate GLP-1 to boost it more naturally, and if you weren't taking any medication, the probiotics would be fiber. Think fibrous foods, and fibrous foods are short chain fatty acid foods. This helps enhance that L cell activity. As I was saying, that L cell activity is in the intestines and it's boosted. And how do you do that? You're going to have more fibrous foods. Think broccoli, veggies. Think more veggies in the diet. You're going to bring that up. Now, when you're talking about the gut bacteria, probiotics within the actual intestines and colon that will build up that GLP-1. It's called Akkermansia. It's one that improves the gut lining and increases GLP-1 production. Bacteriotyrocytes is linked to lean body mass and metabolism increase. And Lactobacillus bifidobacterium, probiotic strains that support GLP-1 function. Now, you'll see many strains of that, and I talk about that in a podcast about different types of probiotics. But these are 3 main ones that will help produce and increase the GLP-1 production naturally. So you can take these in conjunction with medication or without. It also is very big on not only for insulin resistance, which is the decreasing insulin secretion within the bloodstream, but also for inflammation. So I've had many clients take GLP-1s due to inflammatory reasons, and myself included. I have a history of endometriosis, and I've had to use this in conjunction, not just for weight loss, but for inflammatory reasons. So it is so important. But there's a huge connection, again, with an unhealthy gut bacteria, dysbiosis, which is dysregulation, and that can lead to inflammation, insulin resistance, and reduced GLP-1s. Factors that damage the gut include high sugar intake, processed foods and artificial sweeteners, antibiotic overuse, and chronic stress. Now, that is just one part. But when you put all of them together, they will affect your gut. Let me tell you personally, if you don't take care, at least modify sugar intake, processed foods, antibiotic overuse, and your overall stress, you're going to have inflammation and you will get more insulin resistance. Until you start looking within, these things will not change. That's why these medications, highly effective, but parts of this is learning the different areas to get better. Now, how do you optimize it? Let's chat. We're just in lesson 3, right? A lot to talk about. So there's many more things we will go into, but we optimize our gut by eating fibrous foods, incorporating fermented foods if that's in your diet, but you can always just use yogurt that has probiotics or sauerkraut, low sauerkraut. You can take pre and probiotics in your diet, or take foods that are digestible for you. Avoid the processed things as much as possible. Modify it in your diet as much as you can, or at least really look for more nutrient-dense things and manage your stress. So when you just do this part, you'll be so surprised how much you've improved. So I'll see you on the next lesson. Thank you for listening to the Mindfully Integrative Show with Dr. Damaris Maria Grossman, family nurse practitioner. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not to substitute for professional medical advice, diagnose, or treat. Always consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your healthcare routine. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you enjoyed our show, please support us by leaving a mindful review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite streaming platform. Interested in being a guest or more information? Email us at info@mindfullyintegrative.com. For resources mentioned in the show, visit our website at www.mindfullyintegrative.com. You can also connect mindfully with Dr. Damaris on her social media links found on the site. May your strength and peace guide you to find a mindful way every day. Namaste.